The evening began quietly, the kind of calm evening Ethan Carter had always loved about his life in a peaceful neighborhood outside Seattle. The street was lined with tall maple trees, and soft yellow light from the street lamps spread across the sidewalk. Inside the small but warm house, everything looked normal. Ethan had just returned from work, placed his briefcase near the couch, and loosened his tie while the smell of pasta sauce filled the kitchen. His wife, Lily Carter, moved around the kitchen calmly, stirring the pot while soft music played from a small speaker near the window. Anyone looking at them would see an ordinary couple with a stable life. Ethan worked as a financial analyst at a downtown firm, and Lily worked part-time at a boutique art shop where she also sold some of her own paintings. They had been married for 7 years, and their life had slowly built into a comfortable routine. Yet over the past few months, Ethan had started noticing small changes that didn't quite make sense. Lily had been coming home later than usual on certain days. Sometimes she seemed distracted at dinner, staring down at her phone as if she was thinking about something she didn't want to say out loud. Ethan tried to ignore it at first. He believed relationships worked best when people trusted each other. But quiet doubts have a strange way of growing in the mind when there are no clear answers. One Saturday afternoon, while the sun shined through the living room window and the house felt peaceful, Lily told Ethan she was going to take a quick shower before they left for a small family barbecue at Ethan's sister's house. While she was upstairs, Ethan sat on the couch scrolling through the news on his phone. Then he remembered he needed to check the weather because the barbecue would be outside. His own phone battery was nearly dead, so he casually picked up Lily's phone from the coffee table, something he had done many times before without thinking about it. Their marriage had never been the kind where phones were secrets. He unlocked the screen easily since he knew her passcode. As he opened a weather app, a notification appeared at the top of the screen that caught his attention. It was from Google Maps, something he rarely thought about. The notification read, "Your timeline from last Tuesday is ready." Ethan had heard about this feature before. It quietly tracked where someone had traveled during the day. Normally he would have ignored it, but curiosity made him tap it without thinking much about it. The map opened, showing a line of locations connected by small blue dots. At first everything looked completely normal. It showed Lily leaving their house in the morning, stopping at a nearby coffee shop she liked, then arriving at the boutique where she worked. Ethan almost closed the app, thinking nothing of it. But when he scrolled further down, he noticed something strange. The map showed Lily leaving work earlier than she usually did. After that, a blue line led to a place he had never heard her mention before. The location was labeled Riverside Plaza. Ethan frowned slightly. He had lived in the city for years and couldn't remember ever hearing about that place. He zoomed in on the map. It looked like an older commercial building near the edge of downtown, close to an industrial area where there weren't many stores or restaurants. According to the timeline, Lily had stayed there for nearly 2 hours before driving home. Ethan felt a small wave of confusion but quickly told himself there was probably a simple explanation. Maybe a friend worked there. Maybe there was an art studio inside the building. Lily sometimes visited places related to painting and creative work. Still curious, Ethan scrolled to another day on the timeline. What he saw made his chest tighten slightly. Lily had gone to the same place again 2 days later. The visit lasted about the same amount of time. Ethan continued checking other days. His curiosity slowly turned into something heavier. The visits weren't random. They formed a pattern. Monday afternoon. Thursday evening. Another visit late on a Saturday night when Lily had told him she was meeting a friend from work. Each time, the same building appeared on the map. Riverside Plaza. And each time she stayed there for nearly 2 hours. Ethan stared at the screen for a long moment, trying to think logically like he always did. Numbers and patterns were his world. When something repeated, it meant something. Behind him, he suddenly heard the bathroom door upstairs open. Water stopped running in the pipes. Lily was coming downstairs. Quickly, Ethan locked the phone and placed it back on the table exactly where it had been. A moment later Lily walked into the living room with a relaxed smile, her hair still slightly wet from the shower. She looked completely normal, wearing a soft blue sweater and jeans, the same woman Ethan had loved for years. She grabbed her phone from the table and glanced at Ethan. "Everything okay?" she asked casually. Ethan forced a small smile. "Yeah," he said calmly. "Just checking the weather for the barbecue." She nodded and slipped her phone into her purse without another thought. But Ethan couldn't stop thinking about what he had seen. During the drive to his sister's house, Lily chatted happily about small things, like the painting she was working on and a new customer at the boutique who had complimented her artwork. Ethan listened, responding when needed, but his mind kept drifting back to that map. The blue line leading to Riverside Plaza kept appearing in his thoughts like a quiet signal he couldn't ignore. That night, after the barbecue ended and they returned home, Lily fell asleep quickly beside him in bed. Ethan lay awake staring at the ceiling while the house remained silent around them. The room was dark except for faint light coming through the curtains. He thought about their years together, the early days of their relationship, their small wedding by the lake, the long conversations they used to have about the future. None of those memories matched the strange pattern he had just discovered. Ethan didn't want to believe anything was wrong. He didn't want to imagine Lily hiding something serious from him. But the more he thought about it, the more the simple truth became impossible to ignore. People don't visit the same unknown building again and again without a reason. And for the first time in 7 years of marriage, Ethan Carter felt a quiet fear growing inside him, because deep down he knew that whatever waited behind those visits to Riverside Plaza might change everything he thought he knew about his wife. For the next few days Ethan Carter tried to act like everything in his life was normal, but inside his mind nothing felt calm anymore. The discovery from Lily's Google Maps history kept replaying in his thoughts again and again. Every time he looked at his wife, the image of that location, Riverside Plaza, appeared in his head like a quiet question waiting for an answer. On Monday morning Ethan went to work as usual, sitting at his desk in the financial office downtown, staring at spreadsheets and numbers, but his focus kept drifting. Normally he was the kind of man who noticed every small detail in data, yet now the only pattern he could think about was the one he had seen on Lily's map timeline. He told himself there had to be a simple explanation. Maybe she had started helping someone there. Maybe it was an art studio she never mentioned. But the repeated visits made his thoughts restless. That evening Lily came home smiling, carrying a small paper bag from a bakery and talking about a new painting idea she had. Ethan watched her carefully while they ate dinner, trying to read her expression. She looked relaxed, gentle, and exactly like the woman he had always known. If she was hiding something, she was doing it quietly. Ethan wanted to ask about Riverside Plaza directly, but something stopped him. A small voice inside him said that asking too early might close the door to the truth. So he waited. 2 more days passed, and the tension inside him slowly grew stronger. Then on Friday afternoon Ethan finally made a decision. Instead of going home after work, he drove his car across the city toward the address he had memorized from the map. The sky was gray, and the city traffic moved slowly while his thoughts raced ahead. When he finally reached Riverside Plaza, he felt surprised by what he saw. It wasn't a busy shopping center like the name suggested. It was an older brick building sitting near a quiet street close to an industrial area. The building looked worn, with faded paint and a few small signs near the entrance showing different businesses inside. A pawn shop sign flickered weakly near one corner. There was a small barber shop with its door half open, and beside it a narrow coffee stand where a man leaned against the counter drinking from a paper cup. Ethan parked his car across the street and sat quietly behind the wheel. His heart beat faster than he expected. He felt strange, like he had stepped into a story he didn't understand. For a moment he almost started the car again to leave, but something stronger held him there. He needed to know why Lily had been coming here so many times. Minutes passed slowly. Ethan watched people walking along the sidewalk, workers leaving nearby warehouses, a delivery truck stopping briefly at the pawn shop. Nothing seemed unusual. Then suddenly his attention sharpened when a familiar silver sedan turned into the parking lot beside the building. Ethan's stomach dropped slightly. It was Lily's car. He leaned forward in his seat, barely breathing as the car parked near the entrance. Lily stepped out a second later. She wore a light coat and carried her purse over her shoulder, looking around the parking lot for a moment before walking toward the building. From a distance Ethan noticed something different about her body language. She looked careful, almost nervous, like someone making sure they weren't being watched. Ethan's chest tightened as he watched his wife approach the entrance. Just as she reached the sidewalk, a tall man walked toward her from the other side of the street. Ethan had never seen him before. The man looked confident and calm, wearing a dark jacket and moving with the relaxed posture of someone who understood the place well. He greeted Lily like they already knew each other. Ethan could not hear the conversation from inside his car, but he saw Lily nod slightly while speaking to the man. Her smile looked polite but not completely relaxed. After a short moment the man gestured toward the building entrance, and Lily followed him inside. The door closed behind them. Ethan sat frozen in his seat. His mind filled with questions faster than he could process them. Who was that man? Why was Lily meeting him here? Why had she never mentioned this place before? Ethan checked the clock on his dashboard. He told himself he would wait just a few minutes before leaving. But minutes slowly turned into nearly 2 hours. During that time he saw several people enter and exit the building, yet Lily never appeared. Ethan's emotions moved through waves of confusion, anger, fear, and sadness. He tried to think logically, but the situation felt too personal for logic to help. Finally, just when he was starting to believe she might not come out at all, the door opened again. Lily walked out onto the sidewalk. The same man stepped out behind her. They stood near the entrance talking quietly. Ethan watched closely. Lily's expression looked thoughtful, almost tired, but not frightened. She nodded a few times while the man spoke. Then he gave her a calm smile before stepping back toward the building. Lily walked toward her car, opened the door, and drove away without looking back. The man remained standing outside for a moment, checking his phone as if the meeting had been part of a normal routine. Ethan gripped the steering wheel tightly while watching the scene. His heart pounded with mixed emotions. What he had just witnessed didn't look like a secret romantic meeting. The atmosphere felt different, more controlled, more complicated. The man seemed confident, like someone who managed situations for a living. Ethan stayed in the car another few minutes, trying to organize his thoughts. Then slowly he started the engine and drove away from Riverside Plaza. The city lights were turning on as evening approached, and traffic filled the streets again, but Ethan barely noticed anything around him. One thing was now clear in his mind: Lily was definitely connected to that building, and the man he saw clearly knew her well. Whether that connection was good or bad, Ethan couldn't yet tell. But as he drove home that night, a quiet realization settled deep inside his chest. The truth about his wife's secret visits was somewhere inside Riverside Plaza. And if Ethan wanted real answers, he knew this was only the beginning of the story. The weekend after Ethan Carter saw his wife at Riverside Plaza passed slowly, but his mind never found peace. Every moment felt heavy with questions. He tried to act normal around Lily, sharing breakfast, watching television in the evening, even laughing when she told small stories about her day, yet inside him there was a quiet wall of confusion. He did not confront her because he knew he still did not understand the situation. What he had seen outside Riverside Plaza raised many questions, but it did not give clear answers. By Monday morning Ethan had made a firm decision. Instead of guessing, he would go back to that building and speak directly to the man he had seen with Lily. After leaving work early that afternoon, Ethan drove across the city again. The weather was cooler than before, and gray clouds covered the sky, making the streets look dull and quiet. When he reached Riverside Plaza, the building looked exactly the same as before, an aging brick structure with a faded sign above the entrance and a few small businesses scattered along the ground floor. Ethan parked his car and sat there for a moment, gathering courage. His heart beat faster because he knew the conversation he was about to have might change the way he saw his marriage forever. After a deep breath, he stepped out of the car and walked toward the entrance. Inside, the hallway was narrow and dimly lit. The air smelled like old carpet and coffee. Several office doors lined the walls, each with small signs showing different business names. Ethan walked slowly, looking around carefully. Then at the far end of the hallway he noticed the same tall man leaning casually against the wall while checking something on his phone. The moment the man looked up, his calm eyes met Ethan's. For a few seconds neither of them spoke. Ethan approached him with steady steps. The man studied him quietly, as if trying to understand why he had come there. Finally the man slipped his phone into his pocket and spoke in a calm voice. "Can I help you?" Ethan felt the tension in his chest but kept his voice steady. "I'm looking for Lily Carter." The man's expression changed slightly, not with surprise but with recognition. His eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "Why?" he asked. Ethan took a slow breath and answered honestly. "Because she's my wife." The hallway became silent. The man looked at Ethan carefully for several seconds, as if measuring his words before speaking again. Then he nodded slowly. "I wondered if this day might come," he said quietly. Ethan felt a chill run through his body. "You know who I am?" he asked. The man gave a small, calm smile. "Yes. Lily mentioned you before." Ethan felt a mixture of anger and curiosity. "Then maybe you can explain something to me," he said firmly. "Why has my wife been coming here every week?" Instead of reacting defensively, the man simply straightened his posture and gestured toward a nearby office door. "Let's talk somewhere more comfortable," he said. Ethan hesitated for a moment but followed him inside. The office was small but neat, with a desk, 2 chairs, and a window that faced the back alley. The man closed the door gently before sitting down behind the desk. "My name is Marcus Reed," he said calmly. Ethan remained standing at first, but Marcus gestured toward the chair across from him. "You might want to sit," he added. Ethan slowly took the seat, his eyes never leaving Marcus. "I'm listening," Ethan said. Marcus folded his hands together and spoke with a quiet, measured tone. "Before you imagine the worst situation possible, you should know that Lily came to me on her own about 6 months ago." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Why?" he asked quickly. Marcus looked directly at him. "Because she needed help," he replied. Ethan frowned. "Help with what?" Marcus leaned back slightly. "Money problems," he explained. "Medical bills connected to your father's treatment, and some personal debt she had from her art school days." Ethan blinked in surprise. "Why didn't she tell me?" Marcus answered calmly. Because she believed you already had enough pressure. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, struggling to understand what he was hearing. Marcus continued speaking slowly, choosing his words carefully. My work involves connecting people to certain social events and private business dinners. Many professionals host gatherings where they prefer friendly company and conversation. Lily agreed to attend a few of those events. Ethan stared at him. So you arrange meetings between women and wealthy clients? Marcus didn't react to the tension in Ethan's voice. I arrange social introductions, he said simply. Ethan leaned forward slightly. That sounds like a polite way to describe something else. Marcus nodded once, acknowledging the concern without arguing. I understand how it sounds, he said. But Lily made her boundaries clear from the beginning. She only agreed to attend dinners and small gatherings. Nothing beyond conversation. Ethan remained silent, absorbing the explanation. Marcus opened a small drawer in his desk and pulled out a thin envelope. He placed it gently on the desk between them. Lily asked me to give this to you if you ever came looking for answers, Marcus said. Ethan looked down at the envelope, recognizing Lily's handwriting on the front. His heart beat heavily again. What is it? Ethan asked quietly. Marcus spoke softly. A letter she wrote a few weeks ago. She wasn't sure if she would ever have the courage to tell you everything herself. Ethan stared at the envelope for several seconds, feeling the weight of everything that had happened in the past few days. The questions, the doubts, the long nights of uncertainty, all of it seemed to gather in that single piece of paper. Marcus leaned back in his chair, giving Ethan space to think. Your wife cares about you more than you realize, Marcus added gently. Ethan finally picked up the envelope with careful hands. He didn't open it yet. Instead he looked back at Marcus. Is she here today? He asked. Marcus shook his head. No. She hasn't come in since last week. Ethan nodded slowly. The conversation had not given him all the answers, but it had changed the story in ways he hadn't expected. The situation was not as simple as betrayal. Something deeper was happening behind Lily's choices. Ethan stood up from the chair, still holding the envelope. Marcus remained seated but gave him a respectful nod. Whatever happens next, Marcus said calmly, I hope the two of you find a way to talk honestly. Ethan walked toward the door with 1,000 thoughts moving through his mind. When he stepped back into the quiet hallway of Riverside Plaza, the world felt different than it had before he entered the building. He finally had a piece of the truth, but he also knew the hardest conversation of his life was still waiting for him at home. Ethan Carter walked out of Riverside Plaza with the envelope still in his hand, feeling as if the entire world had slowed down around him. The late afternoon air was cool, and the sky above the city was turning pale. Gray as the sun began to sink behind distant buildings. Cars passed on the street, people walked by talking on their phones, and life continued as usual, yet Ethan felt like he was standing in the middle of a quiet storm inside his own thoughts. For several minutes he simply sat in his car without starting the engine, staring at the envelope resting on the passenger seat beside him. Lily's handwriting was clear and familiar on the front. Seeing it made his chest feel heavy with emotion. Slowly he picked it up and opened it carefully, unfolding the letter inside. His eyes moved across the page, and as he read the first line, he could almost hear Lily's voice in his mind. She had written that if he was reading the letter, it meant he had discovered something she had been too afraid to explain herself. Ethan kept reading, his heart tightening with every sentence. Lily explained that several months earlier things had become more difficult financially than Ethan realized. His father's medical treatments had become expensive, and even though Ethan worked long hours to keep everything stable, Lily could see the stress building on his face every night. She wrote that she felt helpless watching him carry so much responsibility alone. Instead of adding her own worries to his burden, she decided to search quietly for a way to help. That search eventually led her to Marcus Reed. Lily explained that Marcus had introduced her to several social gatherings and small private dinners where people needed friendly company and conversation. She wrote clearly that she had set strong limits from the beginning. She attended dinners, spoke with guests, and sometimes listened to business people talk about their lives or their work, but she never allowed the situation to cross the line of respect for her marriage. The money she earned, she explained, helped cover some of the bills that had been worrying her for months. Ethan paused for a moment while reading, his eyes lifting toward the windshield as emotions moved quietly through his mind. Part of him still felt hurt that Lily had hidden such a big secret from him, but another part of him began to understand the reason behind her choice. He continued reading. Lily wrote that every time she drove home after one of those events, she felt a mixture of relief and guilt. Relief because she knew she had helped their situation, and guilt because she had not told the truth to the man she loved most. She admitted that many nights she sat in her car outside their house for several minutes before going inside, trying to gather the courage to explain everything to Ethan. But fear always stopped her. She was afraid that Ethan would misunderstand the situation immediately and feel betrayed before she could explain her intentions. The final lines of the letter were written more softly, as if her emotions had been close to the surface while writing them. Lily said that Ethan had always been the center of her life, the person she trusted and loved more than anyone else. She wrote that every decision she made, even the wrong ones, came from her desire to protect the life they had built together. When Ethan reached the last sentence, his hands rested quietly on the steering wheel while the letter remained open in his lap. For a few moments he simply breathed slowly, letting the meaning of the words settle in his mind. The situation was not simple. Lily had kept a secret, and secrets always leave marks on trust. But the reason behind her actions was not selfishness or betrayal. It was fear mixed with love, a complicated human emotion that often leads people to make choices they never expected to make. After folding the letter carefully, Ethan finally started the car and began driving home. The evening traffic had grown heavier, and streetlights were turning on along the road, casting warm yellow reflections on the pavement. During the drive, Ethan thought about the early years of his relationship with Lily, the laughter they shared during long walks by the lake, the small wedding ceremony where they promised to face life together, and the quiet dreams they once talked about late at night. Those memories reminded him that love was rarely simple. People make mistakes, hide fears, and sometimes take the wrong path while trying to protect someone they care about. When Ethan finally turned into his neighborhood, the sky had grown darker and the familiar houses looked peaceful under the soft glow of porch lights. He parked in the driveway and sat there for another moment, gathering the strength for the conversation waiting inside. When he opened the front door, the house was quiet except for the faint sound of the television in the living room. Lily was sitting on the couch with her hands folded in her lap, staring toward the floor. The moment she saw Ethan, her eyes lifted slowly, and he could immediately see that she had been crying. Her face looked tired and worried, as if she had spent hours imagining the worst possible outcome. Neither of them spoke at first. The silence between them carried the weight of everything that had happened. Ethan stepped into the room and placed the letter gently on the coffee table. Lily's eyes moved toward it, and she understood immediately that he had read it. Her voice was quiet and trembling when she finally spoke. She asked if he had gone to Riverside Plaza and if Marcus had told him everything. Ethan nodded slowly. Lily lowered her head for a moment, tears filling her eyes again as she whispered that she was sorry for hiding the truth. She explained that she never wanted to hurt him, and every time she thought about telling him, fear made her delay the conversation again. Ethan listened without interrupting. When she finished speaking, He sat down beside her on the couch. For a moment they both stared at the floor, letting the tension slowly fade. Then Ethan finally spoke in a calm voice. He admitted that discovering the secret had been painful and confusing, but reading her letter helped him understand her intentions. Lily looked at him with hopeful but uncertain eyes. Ethan gently reached for her hand, and she held it tightly as if afraid he might pull away. He told her that trust in a marriage is not only about avoiding mistakes but also about facing difficult truths together. Lily nodded slowly, tears still shining in her eyes. That night they talked longer than they had talked in months, sharing every worry, every fear, and every hidden thought they had kept from each other. It was not a perfect conversation, but it was honest. And as the quiet hours of the night passed, Ethan realized that sometimes love is not proven by a life without problems, but by two people choosing to face those problems side by side and rebuild the trust that once brought them together.